In life, we often find ourselves standing at the crossroads of uncertainty, peering into the unknown, wondering why things are unfolding the way they are. We ask ourselves, why this, why now? And yet, it is in these very moments of doubt that we are called to trust, to embrace the mysterious ways in which God works in our lives. We are taught that there is more than what meets the eye, that what appears as a challenge or a setback may, in fact, be a doorway to something greater than we can comprehend at the time. God's ways are not always clear, and they are not always immediate, but in the quiet of our hearts, we are asked to trust that there is a plan, one that is unfolding at just the right time. When we walk through the journey of life, we often find ourselves seeking answers, searching for direction, desperate for clarity. We want to know the how and the why of everything. Yet there are times when the answers do not come in the form we expect. The path is unclear, the road is rough, and it feels as though we are lost in the wilderness. But God works in ways that are beyond our comprehension, in ways that do not always follow the path of least resistance or the plans we have made for ourselves. In these moments of confusion, we are invited to lean into the unknown, to embrace the uncertainty, and to trust that God is guiding us even when we cannot see where we are going. It is during these times when everything feels uncertain that our faith is truly tested. The question we face is whether we will hold on, whether we will trust in the process even when the way seems dark and difficult. But faith, by its very nature, requires us to step forward without knowing all the answers. It is not always a leap of certainty, but a step into the mystery. Trusting that God's mysterious ways are leading us towards something greater requires us to relinquish control, to let go of the need to understand everything, and to simply believe that we are not walking this journey alone. As we move through life, we often want quick answers, immediate results, and a clear map of the path ahead. Yet God works in a rhythm all His own, and the answers we seek do not always arrive on our timetable. There is a divine timing that governs all things, and often we do not see the full picture until much later. We may be frustrated, confused, or even angry at the delays, the obstacles, or the twists and turns in our lives. But it is in the waiting, in the unfolding of time, that we learn the most. The mystery of God's plan reveals itself in layers, and what seems like an obstacle today may be the very thing that opens the door to our future. The clarity we seek may not come immediately, but in time God will reveal His purpose for every challenge, every struggle, and every moment of waiting. There are times when the mysteries of God's ways lead us into discomfort, into situations that challenge us, that push us to our limits. It is easy to see these moments as burdens, as trials to be endured. But what if these difficult times are not punishments, but rather the crucibles in which our growth happens? What if it is in the heat of discomfort that we are shaped into the people we are meant to become? God's mysterious ways often lead us into the very situations that stretch us, refine us, and build us into the strongest versions of ourselves. The storms may rage, but they bring with them the lessons that teach us resilience, compassion, and understanding. Looking back on our lives, we often find that what we perceived as setbacks or failures were, in fact, hidden blessings. The moments we thought would break us became the moments that built us up. The people we thought we needed to hold on to were the ones God used to teach us how to let go. What we believed was a detour was actually the direct route to something we could not have imagined. God's mysterious ways are full of hidden blessings that often reveal themselves only in hindsight. What we think is lost may be the very thing that opens us to something far more beautiful, something that aligns more closely with the life we were meant to live. The key to understanding God's mysterious ways is trust. We may never fully understand the why of every situation or the how of every circumstance, but we are invited to trust that, in the grand tapestry of life, there is a divine plan at work. We are called to have faith that, no matter how difficult or confusing the journey may be, God is always present, always guiding, and always working in ways that we cannot always see but can always believe. And in this trust we find peace. In this trust we find strength. In this trust we find the courage to move forward, knowing that God's mysterious ways are always leading us towards something greater than we can imagine. In life, we are often confronted with the unknown. And in these moments of uncertainty, it can be easy to feel lost or abandoned. We search for answers, clarity, and direction, but sometimes the answers do not come immediately. It is in these times that we are called to embrace the unknown, to let go of our need to control everything and to trust in something bigger than ourselves. God's mysterious ways are often wrapped in the veils of uncertainty, and while it may seem confusing or even unsettling at first, these are the very moments where faith is born. We are reminded that life is not about having every step mapped out, but about trusting in the path, even when we cannot see the way ahead. The unknown is not a void or a place of darkness, but a space where growth and transformation are nurtured. In the absence of clarity, we are invited to take that first step without knowing what lies beyond it, to trust in the divine plan unfolding even when we cannot yet comprehend it. God doesn't always show us the entire road ahead because the journey itself is just as important as the destination. If we could see every step, we might hesitate, paralyzed by fear or doubt. But in the mystery, we are called to move forward, to continue walking even when the path is unclear. The unknown becomes a sacred ground where our faith is tested, strengthened, and deepened. It is a place where we are stripped of our illusions of control and invited to fully surrender to God's timing and purpose. There is a beauty in the mystery in the way it draws us closer to God, to one another, and to our true selves. As we face the unknown, we are encouraged to listen more intently, to look more carefully, and to trust that God's presence is with us, even in our most vulnerable moments. The unknown is not an obstacle, but an invitation to trust deeper, to believe stronger, and to rely on faith rather than understanding. In those moments of doubt, we are reminded that God works in ways beyond our limited perception, that He is crafting a story for us that we could never have written ourselves. And in that mystery, there is freedom to let go of the fear that often keeps us tethered to what we think we know and to step into the wild, wonderful, and mysterious journey He has prepared for us. It is in the unknown that we discover the depths of God's wisdom and care for us. When we let go of the need to understand everything, we allow ourselves to be open to the unfolding plan. We begin to realize that there are forces at work beyond our sight. And while we may not have the clarity we desire, we can still move forward with confidence that God's presence is guiding us along the way. In the mystery of His plan, there is trust, and in that trust, we find peace. As we face life's uncertainties, we are reminded that not every answer is meant to be known immediately. Sometimes the most profound growth comes in the spaces of not knowing, where faith fills the gaps and leads us to a deeper understanding of ourselves and of God. It is in these moments that we realize the beauty of the unknown, not as a place of fear, but as a sacred space where transformation happens, and where our journey with God becomes more meaningful than we ever imagined. In life, we often find ourselves standing at the crossroads of uncertainty, trying to make sense of the confusion and the unanswered questions that seem to plague our hearts. We are faced with moments when everything seems unclear, when the path ahead is shrouded in fog, and the noise of the world drowns out our inner voice. It is in these moments that we are called to trust, to lean into the mystery, and to accept that there is more at work than we can see or understand in that very moment. God's ways are mysterious, and often He calls us to trust the process, even when we are uncertain about the direction we are headed. There is a profound beauty in embracing the unknown, and it is in these sacred spaces of uncertainty that our faith is both tested and refined. We live in a world that thrives on answers, on clarity, and on knowing exactly what the future holds. We are conditioned to expect certainty, to desire a clear path, and to have every step of the journey mapped out for us. And yet, time and again, life challenges this expectation. There are times when we are forced to walk in the dark, to navigate without a map, and to step into spaces we cannot yet comprehend. The natural response to uncertainty is often fear. Fear of failure, fear of the unknown, and fear of what might lie ahead. But it is precisely in these moments that God invites us to trust Him, to surrender our need for control, and to let go of the belief that we must always have answers. When God leads us into the unknown, He is not leaving us in a place of confusion or abandonment. Instead, He is guiding us into a deeper trust in Him, into a relationship where we rely not on our own understanding, but on His. We are invited to step forward without all the answers, to trust that God's hand is leading us, even when we cannot see it. This process is uncomfortable. Yes, it requires us to relinquish our control, our desire to have all the pieces in place before we move forward. But it is in these very moments of discomfort that our faith grows, that we learn to trust Him in ways we never thought possible. The unknown in its essence is not a place of fear, but a place of growth. When we step into the unknown, we are entering a space where we can no longer rely solely on our own strength or wisdom. We are forced to let go of our pride and self-sufficiency and learn to rely on God's strength. There is beauty in the surrender, in the willingness to step forward with nothing more than faith in God's promise to lead us. We may not know the next step, but we can trust that He knows the way. In the stillness of the unknown, our faith is shaped, our understanding deepens, and we are given the opportunity to grow into the person God always intended for us to become. When we embrace the unknown, we also begin to see that it is often in these uncertain moments that God does His most profound work. It is easy to believe in God's plan when everything is going according to our own desires, when life feels comfortable and predictable. But it is in the unknown, in the spaces of uncertainty, that we are forced to trust God in ways we never imagined. We learn to surrender our timelines, our desires, and our sense of control, and instead, we lean on God's wisdom. We trust in His timing, knowing that He sees what we cannot see and understands what we do not yet understand. As we move through the unknown, we may find ourselves questioning why things are happening the way they are. We may wonder why doors are closing, why the path seems so difficult, or why the answers we seek feel so distant. But in these moments, we are called to trust that God's plans are bigger than our own. The road may seem dark, but we are not walking it alone. We are walking it with a God who sees the end from the beginning, who knows the exact steps we need to take, and who holds us in His loving hands, even when we cannot see where we are going. The mystery of God's ways is not something to fear, but something to embrace. It is in the unknown that we learn to live by faith, to trust in His promises, and to walk confidently in the knowledge that we are never alone. The unknown is not a void, but a space where God's presence is especially palpable. In the absence of clarity, we are invited to listen more closely, to rely more deeply on His voice, and to trust that His guidance will lead us where we need to go. God's mysterious ways are a reminder that there is a purpose to everything, even when we cannot see it. Each step of the journey, even those that seem unclear or challenging, is part of a greater story being written by the Creator. When we embrace the unknown, we surrender to the story that God is unfolding, trusting that He will guide us through it, step by step, even when the path ahead is uncertain. And in that surrender, we discover a peace that transcends understanding, a peace that comes from knowing that God is with us in the unknown, and that He is working all things together for our good. When we find ourselves walking through life's uncertainties, faith often becomes the bridge between confusion and clarity, between despair and hope. God's mysterious ways are often most evident in the times when we face obstacles, when the road ahead seems unclear, and when we are forced to trust in something we cannot see. In these moments, it is our faith that sustains us, and it is through faith that we are able to find meaning in the chaos. Trusting in the journey, even when we cannot understand every twist and turn, is what strengthens our belief and opens us up to the beauty of God's greater plan. The journey is not always easy, and it is certainly not always clear. There are times when we question the purpose of our struggles, wondering why we are enduring hardship or waiting for answers that never seem to come. It is in these moments that God asks us to trust, to hold fast to our faith, and to believe that He is working behind the scenes, orchestrating every step of our journey. Faith is not about having all the answers or seeing the full picture, but about continuing to walk forward, even when the path seems obscured. It is about trusting that every moment, every challenge, and every setback is part of a divine plan, even if we cannot see it at the time. God's mysterious ways often lead us to places we would never have chosen for ourselves. We are faced with situations that feel uncomfortable, unfamiliar, or even impossible. And yet, it is through these very experiences that we are transformed. When we rely on our own understanding, we may resist these challenges, not wanting to face the discomfort or the uncertainty. But faith calls us to move forward, to trust that God's timing is perfect, and to surrender our need for control. When we allow ourselves to trust the journey, we begin to realize that God has a purpose in every step we take, even when we don't understand it. There is a deeper layer to this journey that we often fail to recognize in the midst of our struggles. The path God has set before us is not just about reaching a destination, but about what we become in the process. The tests, the challenges, the unanswered prayers, and the difficult times are all opportunities for us to grow. They are the moments when we are refined, when our character is shaped, and when our faith is deepened. Trusting in the journey means embracing these moments of discomfort and believing that, though they are difficult, they are shaping us into the people God knows we are meant to be. Faith in the journey also means understanding that God's timing is perfect. We may want things to happen quickly or in a particular way, but His timing is always right. What we think we need today may not be what we truly need in the long run. There are lessons we must learn, patience we must develop, and growth that must take place before we are ready for the next step. Trusting God's timing means acknowledging that He knows what we need and when we need it. It's easy to get frustrated when things don't happen on our timetable, but faith helps us see that every delay, every pause is a moment for us to grow and to trust even more deeply in God's plan for our lives. Sometimes we might feel like we're walking in circles, unsure of where we're headed. It's easy to become discouraged when we don't see immediate progress or when we feel like we've been stuck in the same place for too long. But even in those moments, we are still moving forward. Faith teaches us that even when the journey seems slow, even when we can't see the next step, we are still progressing toward the purpose God has for us. The journey is never wasted, and every experience, whether it seems small or insignificant, is part of the grand plan God is unfolding. Trusting in the journey means believing that even the most challenging seasons of our lives are working together for our good and for the fulfillment of God's promises. In those moments of doubt, when we feel like giving up or questioning why we are where we are, faith becomes the anchor that holds us steady. Trusting in the journey is not about having all the answers, but about holding on through the uncertainty, knowing that God is faithful and His ways are higher than ours. We may not always understand why we are where we are, but trusting the journey means believing that He has a purpose for every season, every circumstance, and every challenge we face. It means leaning into the mystery and allowing ourselves to grow in the process. Faith helps us see that God's mysterious ways are not a sign of abandonment, but a call to trust more deeply, to walk with Him through the unknown, and to believe that He is with us every step of the way. The journey is not meant to be perfect, and it's not always meant to be easy. But it is in the trusting, in the waiting, and in the moving forward without knowing all the answers that we experience the fullness of God's love and His presence in our lives. Every step, no matter how difficult or unclear, is part of His perfect plan, and trusting in the journey is the key to seeing His work unfold in our lives. There are moments in life when we find ourselves caught in the silence, when the answers we seek feel just out of reach, and when our prayers seem to echo back unanswered. During these times, it can be easy to fall into the trap of thinking that God has abandoned us or that our faith is insufficient. We may question why God isn't acting on our behalf in the ways we expect or why His answers feel so distant. However, God's mysterious ways often involve periods of silence and waiting that are not indicative of His absence, but rather are opportunities for growth and deeper reliance on Him. It is in these moments of waiting, when it seems as though nothing is happening, that God is often doing His deepest work in us. God works in silence in ways we may not fully understand at the time. Just because we cannot see His hand at work does not mean that He is absent. In fact, it may be in the quietest moments of our lives that God is preparing us for something greater. Silence is not the absence of God's presence, but the space in which He shapes us, refines our hearts, and strengthens our trust in Him. This is not a silence of abandonment, but one of preparation. During these periods, God is often quietly working in our hearts, molding us into individuals who are more aligned with His will. His silence is an invitation to grow in patience, to deepen our faith, and to learn to trust Him even when we don't have all the answers. While we may long for immediate answers or results, God is teaching us to trust in His timing, to understand that His perfect plan is unfolding even when we cannot see the steps ahead. Sometimes God's silence is a way for us to learn how to be still, to stop striving and trying to control the outcomes. We live in a fast-paced world, constantly driven by the need for instant gratification, quick fixes, and immediate responses. But God often calls us to step away from this busyness and to be still in His presence, trusting that His work is happening behind the scenes. In silence, we are called to sit with our thoughts, to reflect on our lives, and to deepen our relationship with Him. It is in the stillness that we often hear the quiet whispers of His guidance, the subtle nudges that lead us closer to His will. Silence forces us to listen, to hear Him more clearly, and to become attuned to His voice rather than to the distractions that fill our everyday lives. It is in this sacred silence that we are refined, that our hearts are made tender, and that our spirits are prepared to receive the answers that will come in time.